Thank you all. I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. Let me get there we go. All right, I think we're all set now. Okay, so I was shocked, but not surprised, to learn that 53% of leaders say they're burned out. So I want us all to just think about that number for a minute. Let's wrap our heads around this number. So look around the room, just take a second, look around the room at this exceptional group of humans around you. That means if you're not feeling burned out, chances are the person sitting next to you is. So I want to get real. We've got a lot of days together. So let's just put it all on the table. So show of hands or shout it out. Who in here has felt a little bit sick and tired of feeling a little bit sick and tired? Oh, almost everyone. I'd say like 2 people didn't raise their hand. Okay, you are not alone, obviously, right? Over the past couple years, it's no surprise that leaders in spa and hospitality have had more stressors, more responsibilities, more challenges. And it's not just because you've had to adapt and pivot in these unprecedented times, right? You also have suffered from the highest turnover rate of any industry. So you don't have the luxury of just worrying about your own burnout. You're worried about your teams. Are they burned out? Are they disengaged? Now, are they quiet quitting? Right? There's no wonder over the past couple years, one of the most commonly uttered statements I've heard is, I just want things to get back to normal. And it makes sense. Normal started to look pretty darn good. But when you take a minute and take a step back and think about it, when things were normal, were we like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, I just want to ball it up and keep it like this forever? Anyone? No, probably not. And that's why Live, Love, Spa brought me here with you, to help us reset, recalibrate, and remember that normal is not a goal. It's a baseline where brilliance begins. This is where we're going to get to leverage the science of positive psychology. So positive psychology is defined in many ways. Most frequently, it's defined as the study of what makes individuals and communities thrive. I define it as the science of potential. Here's how we're going to use it together today. So here's a number line, negative numbers to the left, positive numbers to the right, 0 in the middle. 0 represents your baseline, your neutral, your normal. Traditional psychology is the study of those dips into the negative numbers and how to get back to normal, how to fix what's broken, how to heal what's wrong. And that is so critical and so important, yet we neglect to focus on this whole other side of the number line, where our brilliance lives, where our potential lies. Normal is not a stopping point, because the absence of sadness is not happiness. The absence of sickness is not health. The absence of burnout is not thriving. Normal is a baseline for brilliance. So some of you right now might be thinking, like, what does she mean by brilliance? She said it like 4 times, and it's the cover of her book and all this stuff. And I'll tell you what it's not. It's not about your IQ. It's not fixed or set in stone. And it's not about your successes and accomplishments. And although I do love the definition of brilliance in the Urban Dictionary, it's not how we're using it today. The Urban Dictionary defines brilliance as the term that the British use for everything. Right, Suzanne? Yeah. So I define brilliance as the unique spark in you that ignites your potential and brings others along with you, moving you and your team to that positive side of the number line. That's where massive transformation occurs. That's extraordinary leadership. And today, I'm going to teach you 3 very practical science-backed tools to help you become a more brilliant leader and ignite, engage, and transform your team and your bottom line. And yes, feel free to take pictures of any of the things that you like here. So the first way we're going to be a more brilliant leader is to create authentic connections. We have been so fortunate to be on the receiving end of a wealth of data and information over the past couple years about why people are leaving their jobs, why they're staying, and what they're seeking. What we've learned, far and away, is people want to feel valued. They want to be seen, to be heard, to belong, to truly and authentically connect. And they want this even more than they want money. So I'm going to throw some data at you. If anybody read any of my book, you'll know I'm like a total data nerd. So here's some good data around this. A recent study, huge study, Microsoft Work Index, just came out last month, showed that 85% of people say the number one thing they want from their manager is authenticity. Big study by Forbes showed that 66% of people overall and 76% of millennials said they would leave their job if they don't feel valued by their manager. A report came out that showed employees in hospitality are the least likely to feel valued than in any other industry. Flip side, good news, iSpot 2022 research saw the greatest opportunity moving forward is to learn how to attract and retain good talent. So there's a gap, right? There's a gap there. And what I'm happy to share with you is that gap is where my expertise lies, is to help you bridge that gap. And I'm here this whole time to help you and support you in learning how to do that. So what is a starting point to help you figure out how to create these authentic relationships where people feel valued and not just want to stay, but thrive? First way we're going to do that is to flip from gold to platinum. So everybody in here heard of the golden rule? Yeah? Treat others the way we wish to be treated. Works well, like in large societies, mainly because it's like a guideline for inappropriate behavior, right? What not to do. But in real relationships, in real interpersonal dynamics, I don't believe it works. Because who's to say that Zita wants to be supported the same way I want to be supported, right? Or after a tough morning, that Christian wants support the way I want support, right? Or that Patty would like feedback the same way I want feedback when we mess up. Or that my 13-year-old son, Miles, after a tough week of middle school, would want a glass of wine and some one-on-one time with one of my best friends. When you think about it that way, it doesn't really work, right? So we're going to flip to platinum, and the platinum rule is treat others as they wish to be treated. And that is the number one way to create meaningful and effective relationships. Because even with the best of intentions, when you assume someone wants to be treated the same way you want to be treated, it can backfire. So meet Emily. She's one of my favorite clients. She's a rock star VP and has a tendency for overwork. I'm sure nobody in here relates to that. She's so fortunate to have a boss, Adrian, who is so tuned into this tendency of overwork that when he starts noticing her emails timestamped in the middle of the night, he steps in behind the scenes, starts rerouting work off of her plate, and encourages her to take some time off. Emily feels so seen and so valued by Adrian, almost in a way that she'd never felt before. So when her direct report, Keisha, starts showing those same signs of overwork, Emily knows exactly what to do. Behind the scenes, she steps in, starts rerouting work off of her plate, stops CCing her on emails that just clutter her inbox, and takes her off meetings that waste her time. She feels so fortunate to be able to pay it forward with Keisha the way Adrian gave it to her. Until. Do you know that was coming? Yeah. Until. Keisha shows up in Emily's office, tears in her eyes and guarded posture, and blurts out, "Are you firing me?" "What?" Emily's shocked. "Clearly you don't value me or think I'm doing a good job. You've been taking things away from me for weeks." Emily was practicing gold, not platinum. And not only did it backfire, but she nearly lost her top team member. Anyone in here had an experience like Emily, where maybe you gave feedback to somebody the way you would have wanted, or supported somebody the way you would have wanted support, and it didn't quite land as you had hoped? Yeah? A lot of head nods around here. Sometimes it's just as obvious or more obvious at home. Like the time my husband Rob, sitting right here, if you don't know him already, I'm sure you'll meet him in the next few days. He's drinking down in his chair. He loves, it's free reign to talk about my family. So Rob was surprising me on a romantic getaway. We had 2 little kids at home at the time, and it was really hard. If anybody has that situation at home, it's hard to get away. And so he was planning this getaway, and I had this like movie montage image of my head of us like going to these private beaches and sipping cocktails and connecting over private jokes. I was so happy. So giddy with anticipation, get to the airport, and he tells me he's whisking me off to Cincinnati, Ohio, with VIP passes to run the bases at a Cincinnati Reds home game. Yeah. Yeah. We're still married somehow. So to him, that was amazing. To me, not so much. So in all areas of our lives, we're going to flip to platinum. There was a moment when this really hit home for me and truly changed the course of my life. I was really fortunate to study under a famous psychologist, Dr. Eleanor Duckworth, during my master's program at Harvard. First day of class, we all walked in and we're handed this identical journal. We make it to our seats, and she says to us, in addition to your coursework, every single night, I want you to look at the moon. And either draw a picture of it, write a poem about it, or find something new to say about it every single night. So anybody who knows me in here knows that I am very artistically challenged, so this was a really irritating assignment to me. Did not feel set up for success, so I was determined, though, to nail this assignment in quantity. So 105 moons, here we come. End of the semester, our journals were collected. We show up to our last lecture in this enormous lecture hall, and the whole place was completely wallpapered with our journal entries, like floor to ceiling, edge to edge, a kaleidoscope of moons everywhere. We're all walking around in awe, knowing something big was going on, but not quite sure what it was just yet. Then Dr. Duckworth spoke. She said, if you take one thing away from my class, I hope it's this. In just 3 months, we found thousands of ways to see one single object that we all thought was seen in only one way. What I'm trying to teach you is the power of understanding somebody else's understanding. And that was my moment. That was my spark. And I spent the next 20 years since that day determined not just to understand somebody else's understanding, but then how do you honor it and then leverage it to spark brilliance in others. When you put the platinum rule to action, you will quickly see that every additional view of the moon is another opportunity for new perspectives, better decisions, greater innovation, and bigger profits. So start flipping from gold to platinum and start leveraging that collective brilliance on your team. The next way we're going to be a more brilliant leader is to be the source of light. So as a leader, it's not just your position that gives you your influence, it's your disposition. So think about this for a second. There is a whole field of study called emotional contagion. And just as it sounds, it's a spontaneous spread of emotion from person to person or through a group, which can be a gift or a gut punch, right, depending on the emotion we're spreading. Neuroscience shows it just takes 33 milliseconds for our brain to read and identify someone's emotions and instantly take them on. Put 3 complete strangers in a room for 2 minutes, whoever has the most dominant emotion will spread to the other 2, good or bad. Sometimes it's really subtle, like in a coffee shop or a co-working space. Sometimes it's a little more obvious. Anybody remember these 2? Which one would you rather have dinner with, huh? And just like platinum, this is sometimes just or more obvious at home. So here's an example everybody should understand. If you have a teenager, like I do, or know a teenager, or if you've been a teenager, I'm sure you'll understand this example. So here's my enormous 16-year-old son, Simon, and my 5-year-old daughter, Haley. So Simon gets home from school, right, and I have 7 hours to get excited to see him again after a potentially grumpy morning. Anybody who has a teenager knows how that goes, right? You're like, okay, I'm really excited to see him again. So he walks in, and you feel that disgruntled teenage energy just filling up the house, right? And you're sticking to it. You're like, I've worked on this all day. He comes in, you're like, hey, honey, how's your day? He's like, fine, and goes upstairs, right? Well, there goes that. And you take on that secondhand stress. And if you allow yourself to get worked up or angry for even 2 minutes, it can take 7 hours for that to leave your system. On the flip side, let's cheer if you have a dog. Like loudly, come on, cheer for dogs. Okay, so I might be overwhelmed and stressed out, and here comes my 135-pound beast of a dog, lumbering as fast as her big lazy body can go with her big doggy smile and her tail going nuts, always so happy to see me. It is the purest form of emotional contagion. I am so grateful that I have my dog to offset my teenager. And it's not just our emotions that are contagious, it's our outlook as well. Studies show that leaders with a positive outlook inspire the same in the layer below them and the layer below them. Which means people that you might not have any interaction with, people you might not know at all, will take on your mood and your outlook and emotion just by how you choose to show up in a moment. It is the quickest, most effective way to create bottom line results, and I'll tell you why. Studies by Harvard Business Review, huge studies show when you have a positive outlook, productivity goes up. I'll get out of the way for this one. Productivity goes up 31%, sales go up 37%, profits up to 50%, and the negative impact of stress goes down 23% from a positive outlook. Emotions and outlook are contagious, they matter, and they multiply. Let's spread some positive ones. So meet Lauren. She's another great client of mine. She looks a little miserable there, but in real life, she is a wonderful mentor and coach to her team. Yet she'd gotten caught up in the stress and mistrust that was permeating throughout the leadership team that she served on. And it was trickling down to the team that she led. They were stressed out, overwhelmed, burned out. Some were even leaving. Lauren became so consumed with this negativity that it infected her team, she didn't know what to do. It begins with you, I told her. She didn't really like that, but that hard truth was her greatest opportunity. Her team had followed her lead. It was in a direction she didn't like, yes, but the important part was they had followed her there, and they would follow her in a new direction. She could lead them back to brilliance. And just like Lauren, brilliance begins with you. If you want to move from overwhelm to fulfillment, it begins with you. If you want to move your team from burnout to brilliance, it begins with you. If you want to ignite, engage, and transform your whole organization, that too begins with you. It always begins with you. So who in here is a Ted Lasso fan like me? Yay. Yeah, we're right here. If you haven't watched him, please put it on your list. If you don't know who he is, he's an incredible mentor and coach who walks into the field of the locker room like a big ray of sunshine and Sour Patch Kids, lifting people up effortlessly. So Ted Lasso did something exceptional. He found the sweet spot where authenticity and positivity meet, the place where the magic happens. And in a time in the beginning of the pandemic when we were all on lockdown and there was so much anxiety and fear and unknown, even through the TV screen, he made everybody smile. He created global emotional contagion. You can choose to be the Ted Lasso for your team, or you can choose to lead Darth Vader style, or Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. We all certainly know this type, right? I imagine that a lot of you just had an image of somebody specific pop up in your head. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And that's not surprising because research shows up to 12% of leaders are psychopaths, but that's a talk for another day. Yeah. And of course, there's a whole range between Vader and Lasso. But when you're having a Vader moment, pause. We all will, right? We're human. Take a step back. Decide, how do I want to show up and what emotion and outlook do I want to spread to my team? So I just want to say, since we're talking so much about authenticity, that I'm not saying that let's have emotional avoidance or irrational optimism or toxic positivity. I'm not saying let's pretend that everything is awesome when it's really not. What I'm talking about is what I call practical optimism, which is the idea of looking at reality. Let's look at the thing, right? And then look toward the future thinking, what are some possibilities in this situation? What are some solutions to this challenge? And the belief that we together as a team will figure it out. Many of my clients lovingly call this the Jackie reframe. So I want to circle back to Ted Lasso. I want everybody to think about someone who was your Ted Lasso. Someone who walked into the room, walked into your life, showed up in a meeting, changed your mood, changed the moment, just by who they are and the energy they brought. It doesn't have to be a big deal, it could be really subtle. But I want you to think about somebody. Who was it? Where were you? What did it feel like? What did it feel like after the interaction? So I'm going to ask you to do something a little risky. I'm going to ask you when I say go to silently take out your phones and text or email the person who served as your lasso and thank them or recognize them or show some form of appreciation for showing up in your life and just by who they are and the energy they brought shifted an experience for you. The intention behind this activity here together is to shoot off this like positive emotional current, right, of emotional contagion that will cascade out and impact many people, because remember, it keeps going. Because together we can be that first domino and we can shift the tide. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and if you can't think of anybody right now or your Wi-Fi doesn't work, just jot down in your notebook who you want to send that out to later. So 2 minutes. If we can get a timer on that, that would be awesome. Do you have a timer? When it gets to the 3. Got 1 minute left. All right, 30 seconds. Ten seconds. All right. Let's put our phones back. So you may already be, or you can choose to be, the Ted Lasso for somebody else. Maya Angelou said it best. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So let's shine, don't reflect, and lasso them. The last way that I'm going to talk about right now to become a more brilliant leader is to win small, to win big. So I want everybody to think about a time in the past couple years when you felt stuck. And stuck, remember, according to Platinum, could look different for different people. So for some of us, stuck might feel a little bit lost, a little directionless, a little joyless. For others, stuck might feel more like sinking, like you're standing in quicksand and can't quite find your way out. For others, stuck might be that our to-do list is growing so fast that no matter how frantically we're moving, we can't keep up with our own life. But whatever that stuck looks like for you, when you're in that place and not making progress, what happens to your happiness? Yeah, plummets, right? That's because progress is a top indicator of happiness and is key to motivation. So how do we know when we are making progress? We feel it, right? We feel that accomplishment. We feel the win. What happens when we make progress, our brain releases dopamine, a feel-good hormone. Doesn't matter if the trigger's good or bad, or big or small, brain doesn't care either way. That's why we often hear about it in the context of addiction, right? We get that hit, it feels good, we want to do it again. Dopamine also works for us when you cross that finish line, when you nail that presentation, or when you perfect your breakdance moves in 1985. I know I'm not alone in that one, right? Yeah. So progress is dopamine working for you. Wins make you want more wins. It's fascinating brain science, but it's actually really simple. The dopamine loop works like this. You get a win, your brain releases dopamine, it feels good, you want to do it again. And as the leader, you get to help your team create these small wins and then watch the momentum and the results and happiness multiply. But I want to be clear, this is not an everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. This is not a like, hey, high five for changing out of your pajamas for the Zoom meeting. This is not that. This is a deliberate scientific practice of taking a large goal and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces, bite-sized celebrations so you can feel the wins along the way. To win small, to win big. In fact, there was a study done, 12,000 daily diary entries, that found the #1 cause of a best day was any progress made by the individual or their team. We all need to feel the wins. When I was brought in to work with this fitness technology company, I was super excited because I was going to be working with a team of rock stars. But I quickly learned none of them felt like winners. Like, how could that be, right? What we uncovered was that they had a 2-year runway from product concept to product launch. This was a fast-moving team. They rotated onto different teams quickly and were promoted very fast. So the chances of the same group of people being there for product concept and launch was very unlikely. So we took this 2-year runway, broke it down into 4 phases, and within each phase had multiple milestones that they could collectively hit as a team. The energy changed, the momentum changed, and their performance changed. We all need to feel the wins. Easy real-world example, football. Whether you're a football fan or not, if you've ever been invited to a Super Bowl party, you probably know enough about the game to understand this example. One of the first things you might notice, they stop and start constantly, right? There's all this setup, the ball moves for like 5 seconds and they're back to setup again. The ball barely moves down the field. But what you're watching is the progress loop in action. Every 10 yards the ball moves, the announcer cheers, the crowd cheers, like everybody goes wild, on and on, until they maybe score a touchdown or a field goal. Every first down is a small win on the way to the touchdown. Brilliant, right? This is called the goal gradient effect, and it's been studied by psychologists for decades. The closer you are to the finish line, the faster you run. So as leaders, we need to create more first downs. We need to create more finish lines. Wins make you want more wins. And this isn't just for our teams, guys. This is also for us. As high achievers, we don't often stop and reflect on the week and think like, gosh, what are some of the small achievements I had? What are the small wins that added up for me this week? We're usually looking ahead. What's the next thing on my list? What's the next goal I need to achieve, right? And the goalpost continues to move farther and farther away. And thanks to negativity bias, where our brain defaults to the negative, we also think, what could I have done better? So because of this, I make most of my clients email me a list of their top 3 wins every week. And what I'm going to ask you to do, because it begins with you, is I want you all, you have a sticker right inside of your notebook, and I want you to think of a first down that you've had this week, a small win, big win, doesn't matter. It could be we updated our software system. It could be we changed our menu. It could be my flight was only delayed 4 times. It could be I didn't spill coffee on my dress this morning. Like whatever it might be for you, big or small, remember dopamine doesn't care. But write down a win or a first down that you wrote on your sticker and put it on. So as you're walking around meeting people today, ask each other about that first down and start learning to celebrate yours and each other's wins. I'm waiting to see some stickers around here. Because I know wins are so important to everybody, 3 people in here are going to, we have a randomizer wheel, are going to win a prize from me after this talk. Yeah. Trying to compete with Kayla on the prizes. All right, everybody get their win? I see a lot of stickers. Awesome. Okay, so before we close this talk, I want to share a personal story with you. It's an experience I had as a teenager that upon reflection really marked a moment when all of these lessons kind of came together for me. So here is 16-year-old Jackie, junior homecoming. Yes, you can giggle if you'd like. So fast forward a few hours. Same night, same really bright turquoise sequin dress, heartbroken. Loud, ugly, crying tears type of heartbroken. And all signs pointed to my junior homecoming date. So here's what happened. After the dance, we went to the post-dance party, and I was there with my boyfriend of 2 years at the time, which at 16 feels pretty darn serious, right? My best friend, Eliza, had her spidey senses up that night, kind of had her eye on him. And she followed him into the bathroom and caught him cheating on me with the senior homecoming queen. At the time, humiliating. Now, a little bit humorous, kind of like a John Hughes 80s movie. At the time, gut-wrenching. Now, of course, I know it's a gift. Nobody, unfortunately, is immune to heartbreak and humiliation. Right? Age, gender, it doesn't discern. But being a heartbroken and humiliated 16-year-old, it's not easy. I didn't want to go to school and face my friends. My grades didn't seem to matter to me anymore. I just wanted to be in my room by myself on my white Formica waterbed, listening to the Pretty Woman soundtrack on repeat. But here's the moment that mattered. Back at school, I was pulled out of class by Mrs. Fitzgerald, our dean of students. Nervously, I walk to her office and I sit down and she hands me a box. I open up the box and inside is a hall pass. And she said, "This is for you to use to come see me whenever you need support." She tells me, "Jackie, I can see that your bright light has been dulled lately. And I want you to know that while people's choices can affect you, they can't control you. And you get to decide what happens next." In that moment, in Miss Fitzgerald's office that day, I experienced authentic connection, her positive emotional contagion, and a win with a way forward. Of course, this was not crystal clear to 16-year-old Jackie, but it was just as impactful just the same. Brilliance is not about your circumstances, it's about your response. Brilliance is a choice. And as the leader, you get to be the spark that lights all the other sparks. Buddha said it best. Thousands of candles could be lighted from one single candle, and the life of that candle will not be shortened. As the leader, you get to create the brilliance that you want to see on your team just by choosing to do so. And with your spark, you can set off an entire fireworks show. Brilliance begins with you. Thank you.